Okay, so let's get back to business and continue our conference BalticNOG 2025. So we kindly invite you all to gather here or maybe to the next room, 5.3. And now we will continue with a panel on network resilience. And now I will announce the speakers. It's Aleksey Sukhonen, Kai Shelgren, Olena Kushnir, Tarko Tikan, and the moderator will be Dmytro Kohmanyuk.
Yeah, thank you very much for introducing us. Okay, all seats are taken except mine. My water is here. Good. See, it's a BalticNOG, so we have to have water somewhere all around us. Okay, you know, we have this tradition at RIPE meetings, well, I'm going to them a lot, to have this little bell to call people in and ask them to stop eating or drinking or smoking, maybe, thinking their thoughts. And so, you know, I had a lot of questions for you all, but I thought first I'll let you, all of you, maybe start with Olena because she's, well, farthest from me, but maybe the one that traveled the most, to do the brief introduction, maybe, and also say maybe what was your latest, I wouldn't say happy, unhappy, but like latest significant episode in your life for making your network better or your company more successful, or maybe dealing with some problem, or maybe installing some solution so the problem of the future would go away. Please.
Hello, my name is Olena Kushnir. I am a co-founder of Dmytro Kohmanyuk. This is an ISP, Ukrainian ISP provider. I am also the co-organizer of Network Operators Group in Ukraine conference, like BalticNOG, but NOG.UA. And of course, I invite all of you. About my company. Our ISP provider, of course, will be ready for the full-scale war. And of course, we faced a lot of different problems when it started. And it is the management problems and, of course, technical problems. And that's why I propose all of you to visit NOG.UA and teach our experience and not continue our mistakes. We have huge knowledges, deep knowledges about resilience, and we're ready to share with you. And we can discuss it not 1 hour because, you know, the experience of ISP providers, it is a different experience like in data centers, for example, or trunk providers, or cloud providers. So now in the RIPE NCC meeting, we have the task force, best operators practice, which based on the NOG.UA knowledges, because we record the video with frontline zones providers and different providers and collect this knowledge and provide one unique document, like manual for all of you. So, in short.
Thank you a lot.
Yes, hello everybody.
Yes.
My name is Kai Shelgren. You have probably, well, some of you at least have seen me around the globe on peering events, NOG events, etc., etc. I've been in the community for about 26, 27 years. The latest place I worked was NetNode. I worked there for 23 years, being the network architect for it and also the technical ambassador, which meant that I spent a lot of time traveling to all the NOG events. I'm really concerned about resiliency, robustness, and this is something that I carry on with now, even after leaving NetNode. So now I'm a free consultant doing consultancy in these parts. And I don't know, I would say the latest things that have affected me was all the cable breaks in the Baltics during, well, the spring and winter. That has actually made me really read up a lot of stuff on sea cables and well, also how to do better resilience on those parts. So I would say, yeah, that's my way going forward right now. Thank you.
Thank you a lot. Yes, Alexei.
Yeah, my name is Alexei Sohonen. I'm from Finland, from second biggest city, Tampere there, and I founded an exchange point there some 20 odd years ago. And I've also founded the Finnish NOG meeting, nog.fi, and I'm still involved with that as well. And I guess the big thing recently that we've done for resilience is that a few years ago we expanded to a second colo. So at first we only had stuff in one place, but now we have in 2 different places, both of which have their own generators and stuff. And also this winter we started a second internet exchange point in Turku, which is the 3rd biggest city in Finland.
All right. And
Thank you, Tarko, please.
Yeah, I will take it from here. So I'm Tarko Tikan, I'm from Telia Estonia. So Telia is a big network operator here in Nordics and Baltics. So hello to my Lithuanian colleagues as well. And I've been doing networking for basically all of my life. So I've done all the rack and stacking and all of that stuff. But nowadays I'm called, let's see, Chief Network and Infrastructure Architect. But I'm not the PowerPoint guy. I'm like a hands-on in the machine doing the configurations. I do have other people for that as well, of course, but that's what I do and that's what I like to do. I like to build good networks. And then we are like what you would call like an access network provider. So we are connecting all the users' eyeballs in Estonia on fixed network, mobile network, and we have IT, business and all that of stuff. So we're kind of the vital service provider in Estonia from government perspective as well. And if I want to make you happy here, then I would say that last good thing I did was IPv6 for the mobile network, which is all fine and nice, but I mean, it's like a commodity nowadays anyway these days. But I've been actually working on, as a side project, on the resiliency part of the networks because, yeah, of course you build redundancy and all these kind of things, but if you start thinking about in context of Ukraine and having like an actual war, then some of the concepts actually doesn't work anymore. Like you might not have employees because they have drafted to the military, or where do you keep your spares, for example, and if somebody comes and bombs your warehouse and all the sea cable stuff, and do you have enough connections and so on. So that's what we have also been planning for. Hopefully we would not ever need that plan, but that's also what we've been working on.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick question for our audience. Can anybody, you don't have to raise your hand. If you think we are too loud, can you raise your hand? Okay, and then if anybody thinks we are too quiet and we should speak up, likewise. Okay, so thank you, the sound crew. You're excellent today, as always. Okay, so, I had a lot of topics to discuss. We have about 80 minutes left, so I would say about 10 minutes per, but it's not exact timing. So, in the traditional way of network architecture, we start with this physical layer, right? Cabling. There was a presentation in the other room about the impact the Red Sea cable cuts from Red. I'm like, I guess it's relevant. And then the guy touched on Red person, oh my God, forgetting his name. Peter Nava was his last name, Timur, about the resilience of the Baltics. And hey, I was not happy. They say most terrestrial cables from Poland go through the little Suwalki gap. Gotland just had its second outage within 2 months. This is little NATO ship made of the rock, right there between the Sweden and, say, well, maybe Latvia more or less. And, it's electrical cable. Nobody was hurt, but maybe it was. And I'm thinking generally, what do you think about resiliency and impact of that? Because, we all network engineers, you must have redundant paths. Not 1 + 1, but maybe 2 + 2 or something, right? Because if you have 2, 1 goes down, then you have overload, capacity overload, and likewise. Maybe not even the Baltic Sea, but like, let's say, who wants to say, you don't have to all say, but who has the closest experience with redundant connectivity? How do you manage redundant connectivity in the Baltic context or in Ukrainian context or in any other context which is relevant? We are not network operator, we are domain operators. I would touch on other subjects, but not on this one.
As my company has two departments in Ukraine, is a project department who make the project of building fiber optic, and of course building department with the special technique for cutting the land and build the fiber optic on the ground. So from our experience when the full scale was started, what can we recommend? Firstly, of course, interconnectivity with other countries. It is very important because we recommend to build new cables, underground cables, with total secret project to another countries. It is very important because all old routes the enemy knows. And you should think about this. Of course, we recommend to build in big cities the ring topology with two waves in data centers. Because if one way will be cut, you still be online. My company in 2022 changed one day 5 different routes from Kiev to Lviv. And it was did by one call. I just called to the owner of one tron company to another, and it was very fast decisions. So BalticNOG, it is a very important conference because they help you to build the community and know each other personally, and will help you to make fast decisions. If you think about the technical sides, data center, perfect issue, but all of you knows the address of data centers, and enemy too. So think about the technical sites underground and with secret address. It will help you. And of course, we recommend to build the fiber optic not using the bridges because it is very easy to hit. And when some fighting happen, firstly, it would be damaged. Enemy knows everything about your topology, anything about your routes, anything about your networks. You should think also about the legislation. So preparing for easy management, for staying your engineers in your company, continue your work, because ISP providers provide internet to all sectors of economic and critical infrastructure. And it is one of the most important sector of market, which should continue to work in very difficult times, any times. I didn't mean the war. No, maybe some disasters, natural disasters, and so on. So you should think about new routes. It is very important. And as I mentioned, legislation, I mean, you should open your market, electronic communication market, for small and micro business. Because in Ukraine, we have 4,000 ISP providers. This is our top secret of our resilience. And when I received the information that in some companies, in some countries, 3 or 4 providers, I think that they are already digitally dead.
Yes,
Sorry.
I agree with you. I mean, if you do this in perspective, assuming 40 million people, if you said it's 4,000, it's about 100 ISPs per 1 million. Let's say we take Lithuania. Let's say it's 2.5. So that would give us what? 100. Wait, am I doing great? No, 250, right? 250 ISPs. I don't think Lithuania even has 25 ISPs, although I can be proven wrong. Look, but you say something.
Well, A few decades ago, Finland had over 50 telecommunications companies, but that's for historical
50,
reasons.
right? And the size of the
50.
country is what, 10 million? I have no idea.
5 million.
Sorry?
5 million people. Back then. Now it's 5.5, but back then it was 5 million.
So it's like 10 per million, not 100.
Yeah, well, most of them were small rural telcos.
But it's a 10x difference.
Yeah. So anyway, what I wanted to say is that Finland, when it comes to connecting Finland to other countries in the world, is sort of an island, because on one side we've got Russia, and nobody wants to make a huge detour through north. So basically 90% of our international connectivity is through sea cables to Sweden or Estonia, or in one case directly to Germany.
Not Denmark? I guess that's a possibility.
We don't, to best of my knowledge, have direct cables to Denmark, but of course you can get there through Sweden, and most of the operators used to do that. But so we are quite vulnerable, especially considering that there have been so many incidents in the past year in the Baltic Sea. But on the other hand, when I thought about it a bit more, I quickly realized that we have at least 5 different companies that operate these sea cables, and each of them have more than one on average. I mean, they have 2 or 3 different cables to different countries. So we've got like a dozen different cables, over a dozen different cables. So even though Finland has been on the receiving side of a lot of these recent cable cuts, they haven't really affected things that much, because there have still been cables left, and the perpetrators have been caught before they could have cut any more cables than they did. So that is something that, well, it sort of reinforces your point that all the countries should have multiple ISPs and telcos that can, run their own cables. And the big thing about Finland is also that we have preparedness in that, even though all of these ISPs have multiple cables, if it so happens that all of the cables belonging to one company get cut, they will quickly be able to provision connections through their competitors' cables until they can restore their own cables.
Oh, that's like a neutrality. I know Sweden has regulatory framework, and I think Lithuania too, about allowing let's say, incumbent fiber to be used. Ukraine doesn't have that, right? So in Ukraine, like, if you have Ukr you wish Ukr would be obligated to give every small ISP access to Ukr fiber, to lease it, to provide the internet. In Lithuania, it does happen. I used to live in an apartment in Vilnius which had exactly that. I checked the IP addresses, I would tell us, I called, they say, no. They actually told me which company is managing. But you want to add something, Tucker?
Yeah, for this regulation part, I wanted to say this is very much different between the countries. But one good thing I can say about Estonia, and I believe this applies to the other Baltic companies as well, is that we are pretty good friends in the industry. So while we might be like in fierce competition during the day, if shit hits the fan to somebody, then we will give each other capacity, whatnot. I mean, the social aspect and community aspect is very important, of course. And also, you shouldn't actually go and provision after you have had a major incident, but you should have that capacity ready. So, for example, I can very openly say that we have some capacity in like Tele2 network and stuff like that, and it's fine. We help each other out. But with the sea cables, I mean, the situation in Baltics, of course, is pretty, I would want to say sad, but the cables are to Finland, for example, and then to Sweden, and then cables from Latvia to Sweden, and so on. And to the south, there is the Suwalki, and that's it, basically. There are no other, let's say, land you could use. And then sea cables, traditionally, of course, you had even the problem that repairing the sea cables might take months. So you cannot rely only on the sea cables. You have to have some land-based capacity. And at the moment in Baltics, it's a situation that we don't really have too strong, let's let's say, infrastructure provider or let's say DWDM providers and whatnot that could actually give you capacity, like even from Helsinki, for example, but from Tallinn to Poland or whatnot. There are a couple, but there could be more. So it's improving. There are some projects ongoing, stuff like that. So at least there would be an opportunity, because if you're like an operator in Estonia and you don't have any other ways to do that business, you don't want to go and start renting out fiber from 10 different parties, building your own DWDM to Warsaw maybe. You want to buy that capacity from somebody. But at the same time, the competition is fierce, markets are small. There is no big business case to go and build basically 5, 6, whatever DWDMs on land, because you could never fill that capacity. So that's kind of the tricky part due to the quite small markets.
Yes, business wants to be efficient. Oh, yeah, please take it.
And one thing I wanted to emphasize also is that once we do have enough sea cables and enough routes, also land-based routes, the next thing we want to emphasize is the capacity to fix them. So, for example, in many of the cases in the past year when Baltic Sea cables were cut, there was only one ship capable of fixing some of the cables, and it was in the Mediterranean or something. So we need more local capacity to fix cables so that when stuff does go wrong, it can be fixed quickly.
The ship story is actually interesting because when we looked at it from Estonian and government perspective, at some point that everybody, all the cable owners said that of course we have SLAs, we have ships, everything is prepared, contracts, everything. But in the end, it's the one single ship.
Well,
and
that's not fun at all.
Yeah, exactly. And everybody has like, I'm exaggerating here, but everybody has like a 2-hour SLA. But in the end,
I just thought of something. You know what? Nobody said the S word, the Starlink. I know Ukrainians use Starlink a lot, except when Elon Musk like, oh, Ukrainian army is going to take Kherson. What if Russia would nuke Ukraine? We better cut Starlink off. That actually happened. And you know what? I just read that there's going to be a decades, I think, effort to launch the satellite backhaul. This is a dream. From the land to the satellite, then to the exchange. This is something that never existed before. The internet becomes 3-dimensional. Well, it has always been, but you know. Okay, who wants to add? Oh, you want to add? Yeah, please.
I will mention about this in my presentation later, but actually saying Starlink start to be the element of critical infrastructure now. Because when the ISPs restore their networks, we use Starlink just for end users. After the occupation in Kherson city, just put Starlink on the main square, where people just come to call, to have possibility to call their relatives and set them their lives. And Starlink, very useful for military force, of course. But we have a lot of stories when the military force plan some attack and just all Starlinks just switch off it.
Great. I mean,
yeah.
Well, not
few times it was, and it's a really very terrible situation because manipulation.
By the way, I know Starlink has actually 2 modes. There is such a called stable node, which is supposed to put in one place. And there is so-called mobile node. If you're old enough to remember the mobile phones which are placed in your Mercedes car with this big handset, I do remember that, although I didn't have Mercedes, I was in school. But you know, there was a such thing, but Starlink does not operate at all in a moving vehicle or, okay, it was supposed to deter the drone use of Starlink. Yeah, but you know what? I want to maybe go to our next topic, which is like routing security. And before going that, I will just mention that, you know, my company, Hostmaster.UA, we use RPKI a lot. We secure, well, okay, we do not operate routing ourselves, but we do sign all of our routes. We also maintain our plain and old routing database entries. So everybody can know which ASs we peer with, and it's especially challenging because we use Cloudflare Magic Transit, meaning that all of our ingress traffic, except for DNS, goes through the Cloudflare. Let's say to our website, to our backend systems, and then we, egress it, send it out using different route. that may be not familiar to everybody, but it's called asymmetrical routing. So routing security and routing asymmetry are, I guess, two different challenges. And maybe you mentioned that. Also what we call the, router hygiene standards. And by the way, exchange points or any places where there's no hierarchy, like customer provider, are always challenging, right? Or data centers, which may end up mixing even layer 2 networks and not keeping the RP, or well, now it's network discovery, IPv6 hygiene. So maybe you can mention if anybody operates data center or exchange or being part of it. I know NetNode operates one, so you can say that.
Yeah, well, I mean, when it comes to hygiene, I would say that the IXs in Europe are pretty good and have pushed pretty hard for use of manners and all those things. So, I mean,
we are on manners too.
Yeah, but the big problem is still corporations who sits with a lot of legacy gear, maybe not have people who are participating in conferences like these and constantly get pointed out for not doing what they should. So for IXs, I think there have been a big part in spreading out the gospel of actually keeping hygiene in your routing. And also, I mean, the lowest bar have been constantly risen. So, I mean, the bare minimum you do now is to keep your route objects updated. You have a sort of reasonable max prefix set. You should also consider doing black holing and have black hole communities and do remote triggered black holing and so on. So, I mean, it's coming around, but yeah, there still is a lot of legacy stuff out there that needs to be updated, and a lot of people who needs to be updated.
Yeah, thanks. Anybody wants to add?
I want to comment on your Cloudflare thing. Is that I think this is at some level the worst thing you can do is that basically just trust one single sole third party. So the Starlink is also a thing that is very many times hyped up that this is magic solution for everything. But in the end, you are trusting everything on the hands of some third party controlled by US, which whatever political motivations. So it's tricky. Of course, the Starlink itself is a very valuable tool, especially connecting the end users, not so much connecting the network itself. But I mean, there are developments there, as you said. It's let's see what happens. But yeah, do we really want to give the kind of the keys and all the traffic to one single third party? Or where do they actually send the traffic from? We have had some incidents with some Cloudflare traffic coming from Russia, for example. So do we really want that?
Yeah, I remember back in the day when one of the Russians were a member of RIPE executive board. I don't want to name any names. It's not important. I remember he said, Dmitry, do you know, or says, Dima, do you know that the Americans are going to have the keys to the internet? Do you know these Americans? Remember the Cold War? Says, yes, Dima, I remember the Cold War. Let me remind you who won it. But the thing that, routing security master keys has been first developed as a hierarchical, but then we switched the model when basically each RAR can sign every other route. It's a shared anchor. I think it's better. But now we have another problem. For those who don't know, the regional registry for Africa was basically in legal failure, like organizational failure, elections fraud or something else. It was a big corruption case. They just had the final election. They were almost arrested because of the court case, like the assets and all. I would imagine RIPE NCC being, say, targeted by cyber attack intended to disrupt or replace or mutilate some of the routing database entries. Same can be done in the US, and by the US is famous for having multiple sources of truth, which I hate. Yes, you have ARIN, but then you have this other, let's say NTT runs its own routing database. Some companies update their data everywhere. Some of them they update in one place, forget about these other places, or do it everywhere, then the next employee would forget about the other places. I would easily see how a national or maybe localized mirror of the routing database and tracking the changes can be good. That's like one thought I have. Another one is about locality and, let's say, European Union locality of the data. Well, there's a peering DB talk which is happening. There's the same, during our panel in the other room. We can all see the recording later, and okay, I'll have my thoughts later when we finish the panel. Okay, we have to change to the next question, but please say
yes. I want to highlight one story from this year what happened in Ukraine. It was the voting for new member in UAIX. It was a person, Boissel Dombreval Paul Pierre Jean Baptiste, not Ukrainian surname, yeah? And it was really sometimes automatically, yeah, we agree, no problem. But I wrote the letter, somebody knows who this person? And in that time, when I sent this email, I received few calls from another point exchange that through this person, a lot of flutes and the doses was organized.
Oh, and the capacity on exchange is huge.
Yes, that's why you should double check whom you connect to your point exchange.
By the way, UAX had this policy when everybody must peer with everybody, which was rumored to be the safest and the best way. But in reality, if you cannot choose, do you peer with the new member or not, you can potentially be used as an amplifier for the malicious new member, or maybe the member who had the cybersecurity app. Is it?
So I wanted to add a Finnish perspective again to this RPKI issue. So in Finland, I work with the National Cybersecurity Center in some things, and one of the things is routing security and also the security of DNS. And the Cybersecurity Center has been trying for a long time to get the Finnish financial institutions like banks and insurance companies to adopt RPKI and DNSSEC. They've had targeted seminars and stuff like that. And they've been getting encouraging nods, and that's it. And well, I haven't actually followed recently if they've finally started adopting some of it, but one big problem that enterprises see with both of these mechanisms is that if you mess up your RPKI or if you mess up your DNSSEC, you disappear completely. And it can be very difficult to fix. It'll typically for enterprises, it'll require expertise that is out of house, because nobody in-house knows why it broke or how to fix.
That's true. And I remember that .SC domain once managed to kill the trailing dot and kill all the EC domains at once, with or without DNSSEC. That was spectacular failure. You know what? Every time I have a DNS nightmare, it's about the same thing happened in Ukraine. But you know, as a guy who wrote some scripts of UA automation, I tell you, I run into this problem myself, but of course not in the mass scale, just adding the name manually and running. But I'll move to the DNS, as we mentioned, actually it's DNS and control plane. But okay, well, we are running DNS Anycast in Ukraine. We run actually we use our own Anycast, and we use 5 DNS Anycast clouds. One of them is NetNode, and one of them is PCH. I used to be American, I think it's European organization, non-profit. And then 3 more from Czech Republic, Austria, and Bulgaria. I would say Anycast is important, DNS is important, but I also want to say that you have to have resilience. Anycast is not resilience. Anycast is just like multiply copies of the same data. I think that having more than one, well, no one source of truth, but more than one system, like say software system, or hardware system is important. Like, you know, if you have, let's say, bind domain server and its vulnerability, then you'll have, well, some issues potentially, and we do have that thing that you have to frequently update the software. I don't know, anybody here runs the DNS? And then we talk about the time, maybe, the time service. Again, I know NetNode runs the time service, and there will be a speaker about time service at the BalticNOG, if I'm not mistaken, tomorrow. But let's talk about the DNS first and the time service, or in the order, if Olena won't say something. Because I can talk about DNS myself forever, but I'll stop it.
I just want to say that in Ukraine we have PTP etalon service time servers, and they work perfect. And thanks God, everything was fine from full-scale war. And of course, it is very necessary for navigation, for a lot of different things. You know that Ukraine is one of the digitalized countries in the whole world. We have very good app, DIA, and of course, it is a very important issue. Have in Ukraine national etalons of time, and they work good. And of course, all countries should to reserve and top secret of address of this location of these servers needed to be.
Okay, thank you. Please. Okay.
So I promised to myself that I wouldn't bring up politics, but I can't help myself. So in the past few years, and also more to come, the EU has been working on directives specifically to make European DNS landscape more resilient by there are projects to create European resolvers, anycasted resolvers. There are, the NIS2 requires national TLDs to be more resilient on every level. So EU is forcing the member countries to work on this. So from that point of view, I'm sleeping well, because I see the wheels turning. Well, we can all do a lot, and we've been doing a lot at home, but now all the other guys that were slacking are being forced to do more as well, which I think is good.
I don't think it's political, it's just a fact. I know about EU Resolver, although I have heard very skeptical opinions. There was like a small tender won by some small operator. You know, honestly, I prefer to use Cloudflare, Google, or Quad9 DNS. Actually, the Quad9 is probably the only one which is run by true non-profit, because Cloudflare is, well, okay, commercial company as well as, well, Google is through Alphabet. But I wanted to ask you, anybody else running time server? What about the NetNode situation?
Well,
I know they do run it, but like, what was the experience? How did they got integrated with the government? Did the military use the server? Yes.
I mean, the integration is more like PTS, the Swedish authority for keeping track of all ISPs and so on. They work together with NetNode and other companies to provide Swedish timescale. But NetNode is the one who provides the Swedish timescale in that sense, together with SP down in Borås. So it's a system that's been built during many years. I remember when we started building. Yeah.
Was it custom FPGA boards? I remember one presentation in Stockholm, maybe last year, about that.
They are, I mean, they are extremely custom, so all the code is written in-house and so on.
Nowadays there are like better options available commercially as well, but yeah, for the timing it's good to see that people are now thinking about that GNNS might go away, because previously it was that let's just use the GNNS and then everything is fine, but now we have the constant jamming from Russia, for example, like half the Estonia. Okay, if you're on the ground level, you're looking very high up, it's mostly okay, but let's say if you are a drone operator, airplane, whatever, if you go to the plus 10,000 feet, then you instantly will see the jamming from the Russian side. So yeah, the timing as well in Estonia, we have something ongoing. We are cooking on the government level as well. We can't really talk about it, but to have some independence from the GNNS.
Yeah, you know, just GPS signal can be jammed by many parties. You know, I found it showed me this great album of my latest trip to Lebanon. I'm like, excuse me, I've never been there. And I was, oh, that was my trip to Cyprus, except the GPS was jammed. It was very funny. I was getting a rental car, and it says like, oh, you want to go to Paphos from Larnaca? Oh, easy. Actually, you are now in Beirut. Take a ferry to Turkey, then take a ferry to like North Cyprus, and then just cross the border of the occupied Cyprus territory, and there you go. Seriously, that was the goal. I'm like, well, I guess I just wait a bit. Once I drove away from the coast and into the regular road, I saw the real road. Actually, I was lucky because there was somebody with me in the car, so they can read me the signs, because I was like looking at my phone. But
Cyprus, this has been ongoing for quite some time now. That due to big
every
military
time I
bases
go there, I notice that. I mean, I was there pretty much every summer for the last 3 years. Well, summer, whatever. But I was about to say something, which I was thinking about. Yeah, we do have an instance. Olen and I talked private about it, about NetNode provided hardware, but it was not NetNode manufacturing. It was another company. That specific hardware, I think, used GPS signal. But I do think that it's better to have independent source. And I wonder if a NetNode solution uses both, or you have, like, let's say, node 1, node 2, because then you can have multiple thread on sources.
Well, I'll answer more about NetNode then. Anyway, as it is, it's separate atomic clocks that are in 6 different bunkers all over Sweden. It's nuclear bomb-proof bunkers, secret places. And then you create a timescale together with them. But you also take in for reference, of course, GPS signals and so on. And that is also something that I would recommend everyone to do, that you do get your time from more than one place. So, I mean, don't only use PTP, also take a GPS signal, for instance. And also have some intelligence in your hardware and software that figures out that, oh, there was a big jump in the time. Maybe that is not normal. Maybe I should sound an alarm on that. So it doesn't automatically just accept, oh, the time just shifted 8 days forward. That's a bad idea.
Yeah, atomic clocks don't drift. I mean, there is a leap second issue, but it's not relevant to here. Well, actually it is. But let's not go deep into the time stuff, because
That's
again, it's another
topic.
great topic to spend a few hours on.
There will also be a good presentation about Svenne later on that, so tomorrow.
Oh, right. It would be. Okay, let me see what is my other point. Oh yeah, another one. The 4 letters or 3 letters denial of distributed or just regular denial of service attack, and I would say, well, okay, we already spoke about a bit black holing and overcapacity, because it's one of these ways, right? You know, just have 10 more bandwidths than you think you need, maybe 100 more, then probably it's better. Anybody using any specific solutions for DDoS protection? Because we use Cloudflare Magic Transit, I already mentioned that. But we're lucky we don't have normal traffic.
You say you're
DNS
Cloudflare and then you're golden, you say. But actually this is a good point, that all the capacity that you will have, and also for this international capacity, you probably don't want to have double the capacity. You want triple or quadruple or something like that. This is actually very good for fighting DDoS. So it's kind of, again, like you are doing something for resiliency, and you get something in addition as well. Is that you can actually use that capacity if you're smart, if you do it right, and if you're doing, let's say, optical wave protection, then you will not get that capacity. But if you do it on IP level, that you can at least do some scrubbing in the network. I mean, if you get hit with 20 terabits per second attack, then probably you need black holing and all that stuff, and probably most of the third-party scrubbers will also fall under that traffic, unless it's like super distributed all over the network, all over the globe. But yeah, I mean, the extra capacity helps a lot with that. And of course, the answer is combined protection. Because like if you want to truly protect the customer, because the problem that we always have with the DDoS attacks and all these, let's say, third-party providers is that if you're gonna resell somebody else's service to your end customer, it's too many people in the chain to really understand what protection customer needs. It's easy to do it for the simple volumetric attacks, but if you go to the more complex attacks, then you need very specific configuration, tuning, and so on. It's hard to do if there are many providers and players in the chain. So it's best like if you could talk to the customer directly, and then you implement whatever configuration is needed on your side. But this means that you need to do the scrubbing on your network, and you might not have the capacity, or not many of them might not have the capacity. So it's, again, like you need to have some sort of multiple layer defense and black holing, of course, and so on. But the extra capacity specifically helps for the DDoS.
Yeah, we're updating our capacity. And by the way, we are partnering with Sezanik. When I spoke to them, like, we always have 40 gigabit links at least, well, because these are computers, not routers. And like, we just have so many data centers. And then I'm like, great. And then I did some tests using Grape Atlas and found their routing was suboptimal. Some of the traffic from Europe was served from Japan. Or maybe it was Japanese traffic served in Europe, I don't remember now. So, you know, yes, you can have distributed capacity with use Anycast with a specific DNS topic. but also I think, let's say, having more than one place, right, when the capacity would be used, because if you have only one instance of that service, well, I guess whatever capacity would be there would be eaten by that attack, and then your customers would not be able to access it. Well, okay, let's see. The timing is still good.
Dima.
We can, get a comment from you, Elena, please.
I just want to add how it's going in Ukraine with the DOS attacks. First, I want to pay attention that full-scale war started not in well-known dates in February 2024. It was months before, from huge to the DOS attacks, to critical infrastructure, when near 30 websites of government was shut down. And next day, 15 of January, it was huge attack to bank sector, and the most popular banks database was just deleted. And now, what do we see? Firstly, the DOS attack to critical infrastructure. Next day, huge missile attack to this critical infrastructure. I mean, for example, energy sector of Ukraine. So the DOS attack, it's part of physical occupation and physical attack. And I think that it is information for statistics, for analytic, and understanding of what they do in the war and how they do in the war, enemy. So after the DOS attack, we should understand what step will be next, just for thinking.
By the way, I'm looking for the timing of attacks you mentioned. There's a nice Wikipedia article called 2022 Ukraine cyber attacks. Indeed, it was January and then February, just actually 24 hours before the actual military invasion. We at Hostmaster also suffered from it. One of our DNS systems, which served Gov.UA, went down, but luckily that was not the only one. Internally, we had prepared for the war with Ukraine in Hostmaster from December 21. We have an internal project. We called it electrical outage. EO. That was, well, we didn't say that, but that's like was in Ukrainian, выключение электрики. And we had prepared for redundant DNS and redundant other infrastructure. We actually had provisioned service in European Union, now I can say that. In December of, it was always possible for us to operate from abroad, but we did not operate everything from abroad. We have a secondary. So in 22, when I was abroad, I actually left Ukraine about 10 days before that. I remember the first cyber attack. I traveled on the 14th, so it was on 15th, and I remember the second. When the second attack happened, I'm like, that's not good. I wonder what the third thing would be. And then the third thing was actually military war. So we spent some time relocating infrastructure, well, actually using the infrastructure we prepared and creating some new infrastructure, which it did not prepare because I was honestly not ready for the military invasion like that happened. I was planning for the smaller scale incursions like in Crimea or Donetsk, but it was not the case, as we all know.
I just want to add who interested this topic. I mean, cybersecurity and information about this. On BalticNOG.UA, we will have very cool panel with government, with cybersecurity sector of government, with military force and other issues, and you receive more and deeper knowledge about the situation in Ukraine.
So I wanted to add an out-of-the-box thinking idea for the DDoS topic.
Okay.
So I've been running one of the world's oldest IRC servers for 30 years now. And back in the 90s, IRC servers were DDoS attack target number one. At some point, we decided to start using a dedicated IP block for the IRC server's user-facing address. And what we did also was that because it was supposed to only serve Finnish users, is we limited the scope of that address to just Finnish networks, so it wouldn't be announced outside Finland. And what that means is, even if somebody sends us DDoS traffic, it doesn't go anywhere because none of the backbones around the world have the required route. So that's a bit of out-of-the-box thinking. It doesn't work for everything, but this is an example where...
So it was additional network, right? You had the main network reachable from everywhere and the secondary network reachable only from selected Finnish networks.
Yes, well, actually, the network that was reachable from everywhere was IPv6, which saw a lot less DDoS traffic, and all the important inter-server links to the other servers in other countries worked over IPv6. So that's, I don't think it would work that way anymore, but back then, in the early 2000s, that worked wonders for us. But anyway, the IPv4 block is still not announced anywhere, except maybe just under a decade ago, the transit at that time accidentally announced it at AM6, and immediately they got a DDoS attack, or we got a DDoS attack that filled their backbone between Amsterdam and Northern Europe, I mean Nordics. We didn't see, we also had other layers of security to filter DDoS attacks, so our server didn't really see anything, but the leaking backbone, their network was down or overwhelmed for a while until they, actually it coincided with a feature freeze over the Christmas holidays. So I called them and told them, could you fix this? They said they have a feature freeze. Then I said, well, okay, if you don't need the network over the winter holidays, then fine, but it would be in your best interest to fix it anyway.
I was thinking, back then, right, we had the phone number, right, the traditional out-of-band communication, right? If there is a problem, you can call the person in Amsterdam and say that, nowadays it's all LTE, right? Or, sorry, 5G, at least in Vilnius. And then, we have probably don't have any network anymore not using the internet. Well, okay, so I would just wonder how the mobile carriers would prepare for that, Because I remember it was a recent incident in Australia when the local operator did, as they say, firewall upgrade, resulted to cut off the emergency service in Australia for several days. 3 people died because they weren't able to receive the calls. The number is not 112, but I think it's 000.
Yes.
You remember that? You're a telco guy, I remember. I think it's 999 and 911 in America, which is also working, by the way, here. I did call it once. But 999 is British and 000 is Australian, upside down. Yeah, but you know what? I think we can talk about the telco redundancy in a Baltic TelcoNOG forum.
I will actually expand, while you look for the next question, I will expand on your prefix trick.
Okay.
It still works today very well, and I just suggest everybody to do that. You just take one possibly very small, so /24 IPv4 prefix, and you take an IPv6 prefix, in addition to your normal prefixes that you use, one or more. And you will just not announce that to the internet. So we also do it for the internal DNS recursors, DHCP servers, whatever. So why give them a target? This traffic would never reach you, but it's still a globally unique IP address. It's not like a private IP, it's globally unique. It looks very well. You can, if you want to, announce it to other local providers, if you need to have it. And you don't announce it to the internet, you don't announce it to your IP transit, and you never receive the traffic. So even these days, for your normal, typical services, it works very well.
I would call it near casting, right? Like
yeah,
not any,
like,
but near,
yeah,
meaning
exactly.
like within your metropolitan area. It's actually not a bad idea.
I would also recommend that if you have such a network, that you also use it to number your backbone links and your peering and transit links, because those are often also targeted.
Yes.
And if the traffic can't reach them, then they're safe.
Yeah. Another way is to use private v6 prefix, which you don't even have to announce. Well, again, except for the limited reach of
That's the problem with that is then you lose meaningful trace routes. So your
Yes.
debugging becomes harder because people filter that. So if you use dedicated addresses that aren't announced, then you can still get trace routes with working reverse mappings.
Yes, that's a downside. Yes, unfortunately, yes. I remember there was NTT policy to always have a separate out-of-band ISPs for every node they have and make sure it's not NTT, well, it's not one relying solely on NTT for its backhaul. Otherwise, you have a dependency loop. That was another thing I want to speak about. Well, I'm not going to, we still have a bit of time, but I want to reserve for the longer discussion, which should be more freeform. Regulation and cross-border. Well, okay, let's split it. The regulatory, I don't know, maybe I'll ask you quickly. Do you think that regulators help achieve resiliency, or they just train behind and trying to regulate something they don't understand, or like telling you in 2025 what you should have done in 2015? Do regulators help or impact operations? And then we go to the next sub-question, which I have in mind, but let's work on that.
You first.
Okay. No, well, I mean, that depends, I would say. In some cases, the regulators greatly help. When you have got a clear goal and you get enough of the operators on board, and you can have sort of a consensus that this is a good thing to do, then the regulator can really help. They can also help if the idea is sound, but nobody wants to pay to do it. Then the regulator can just say, you have to do it. And then it's going to be very much easier for the engineering people to get the budget through. So in that case, I would say the regulator really helps. Then, of course, regulators have a tendency to be pretty slow on the ball. So, I mean, it's a constant, I wouldn't say struggle, but at least a constant communication with the regulators between ISPs, IXS, whatever, to make them stay up to date with what needs to be done. But I can only speak for Sweden, and I would say, yeah, they can be very helpful.
Okay, thank you. Elena, do you want to say something? Of Ukrainian regulators successfully helping you to achieve your goals?
I think that the best decision that made by our regulation that they didn't regulate Ukrainian market. That's why we have so huge sum of providers, near 4,000. Even some technical students from Kyiv Polytech University can organize a small network in his campus and grows and start to be more big ISP provider. That's why I think that it is the best issue and top secret of Ukrainian unique experience. And I recommend the regulators to do the same. And when I listen, there some think that we should integrate to Europe. Of course, we should learn a lot of different things from European countries. But I think that in this issue, this decision of our regulator, the best one for resilience, of course.
Okay, thank you. Oh, you want to say?
Yeah, so
Thank you.
adding to what Kai was saying about the regulator being helpful, I think the Finnish regulator is also quite helpful, and but sometimes they also require us or ISPs to do something, unreasonable, do an unreasonable amount of work or invest an unreasonable amount of resources to resilience. And in that case, I'm happy to say that the Finnish regulator has learned that this is a thing, and they also then have a funding tool to help ISPs or IXPs still do the unreasonable thing without bankrupting the ISP or IXP. And also on the flip side, when we were preparing for the panel, one of the specifics for Baltic states is that, I'm not sure if it's true for all Baltic states, but in at least one or two of them, before joining the EU or before, in the 90s still, the countries had one incumbent telco that dominated the market. And EU, of course, says that monopolies are bad, you need to take them down. And laws have been changed, I guess, in all countries now, so that the incumbent telco is no longer protected from competition. But just removing that will not magically create competition, at least not easily. And I fear that the lack of competition can be one challenge when you are trying to create resiliency. And also, from the Finnish point of view, and probably especially from the Swedish point of view, it seems that exchange points in Baltic countries are not doing as well as they could, and I would attribute this to the history of having a monopoly or one very big operator, because when that operator typically doesn't want to peer, at least not for free. So for the small ones, then small operators to join the exchange point, what's the point? Because there's only so little traffic you can get there at the exchange point. So it's a very difficult chicken and egg problem to fix. But I just wanted to point out, I guess, that it is a problem.
By the way, in Ukraine, we have three major mobile carriers, Kyivstar, formerly known as MTS, now it's called Vodafone, and then the LifeCell, which is, it was owned by Turkcell, now I think it's been resold to the French operator. That was a mobile sector. Then we had DSL provider by incumbent Ukrtelecom, Telecom, then we have the DOCSIS network by Volya, then we have dozens of medium and, let's say, hundreds of small ISPs. But now they start to consolidate. The data group, which was B2B provider, is now consolidated with Volya, which is DOCSIS Home, plus the LifeCell, right? Like one of the two mobile. So we'll see the emergence of this European triple play. In Lithuania, Home I have the Telia Home fiber, I have the mobile from fiber, and then I just learned from the person from Telia that the Tele2, as we say in Lithuania, is third mobile carrier. It's also leasing infrastructure from Telia. So in Telia only has two mobile companies with regard to the infrastructure, BT and Telia. Not enough. And in Ukraine, we luckily avoided this. Okay, we used to have 3G monopoly from Utel, which was partially owned by Ukrtelecom. That is a fourth operator, formally exists, but in reality it was still UMTS, so 3G technology. Even 3.5, and there was also a CDMA provider. Actually, there was 3, but 2 of them, I think, consolidated or died. Intertelecom from Odessa remained. I used to be their customer too back in the day. Still, usually Ukraine had, like, let's say, home market, B2B market, mobile market, and, a data center market. In this other presentation, was it in Timur's maybe, he said, data center, one per country. He mentioned one data center in Lithuania. It's right there, not right here where we are, but right there near the Amnestas new town in the center of the city. Not enough. I know Amsterdam has more than one point of presence. I know that, say, Sezenik runs 3 data centers in Czech Republic. They have 2 in Prague and a sort somewhere else, which they don't want to say where. And, maybe we'll talk a bit about data center redundancy, how do you structure your own networks.
But before
then I have 2 more topics, and we have about 20 minutes, and I want to take some audience questions.
Yeah, before I go there, I'm being the incumbent in Estonia, so thank you for that. My lawyers will love you. So why is that happening? I mean, I've been thinking about this before and as well, and there are like multifold problem. First of all, the telecommunications and networking is not sexy anymore. So it was like sexy in year 2000, but nowadays everybody wants to build iPhone apps. So nobody wants to go and build networks and stuff like that. So that's one problem. Another problem is that when I grew up and started in networking, we could actually learn and test in production. You can't do it anymore. I mean, internet is a vital service. It's not like that, okay, I can try it out, oh, the software upgrade went haywire, I will do downgrade, maybe I will retry the upgrade. I mean, nowadays it's like SLAs and everybody complains if internet is down, even your lowest paying residential user. So it's kind of the service that you need to have. And also, especially in the mobile space, the equipment manufacturers and standards and stuff like that, the GGPP stuff, it doesn't make it even easy for the people who would want to get to the networking, because it's quite closed kind of garden type of thing. So all the, let's say, the Nokias, Huawei's, Ericssons, whatever, they don't really want to sell you equipment the same way they maybe you are used to buying IP routers. So like, get me an IP router, get me some documentation, and I will set up the BGP and whatever vendor it is, I can make it happen. But the mobile stuff is not like this. They are very happy to sell you like kind of the full service without you actually knowing anything about it. So Ericsson, for example, and others as well, of course, Ericsson is not a bad or good example here, is that if you want to start a mobile network, then you can basically go to them with a wallet saying that, build me a mobile network, build me an access, build me core, operate it, build me billing, everything. I just want to sell SIM cards. And that's easy. So they are happy to do it all for you. So the telecommunications market, like it was like year 2000 and something like that, and today it's not like that. In Estonia also we had smaller operators, and the consolidation has happened not because the bigger operators have bought smaller ones, but more like the smaller operators have sold their businesses because they cannot make any money, their margins are quite low, and they just want to exit the business and find a bigger brother to buy their business.
It happened in Ukraine. It happens in Ukraine now because of the war. Imagine an operator in occupied territory. They are probably not going to survive in a Russian regulatory regime, right? I mean, I would not want to go into this IP address transfer situation we had in Ukraine when some of the IPs were forced to transfer addresses or like acquired. That's like another topic. I mean, you can call it resiliency after the war already started in the country. But okay, let's say, I hear you. I mean, it's natural for any industry to consolidate. And yes, back in the day, I can imagine Estonia had more operator than today. But it's a natural process, you know, as the industry becomes not sexy, as we turn from being the new technology to like a railroad, you know, or the plane, you know, it's like we are considered a utility. A utility is usually, you know, boring, cost factor, not a profit factor. Usually though, they are protected by the governments. By the way, I'm watching the screen. Somebody was like, I thought they're trying to hack into Lena presentation, but I think this computer is connected to some other computer. They're trying to like edit and click and resize your slides. So they're like, be careful. You know, Russians are everywhere. They're even in Lithuania. I've seen them many times. Yeah, just, you know, no judgment, just saying, observing. Yeah, one more thing that I didn't touch, and we have about 20 minutes left, is cost risk analysis. Like, you know, every ISP wants to be reliable, every ISP wants to stay in business. Unless you're owned by the government, you have to be competitive. Even when you're semi-monopoly, you still have to, you know, well, fit within your budget, right? You cannot just raise the prices, although Tele is successfully trying to raise the prices of mobile service every year. Like they have 2-year contract. How do you like balance this cost of being redundant, cost of being resilient with the, well, challenging environment we are in? And, you know, routers are not getting cheaper either, last time I checked. No, we need bigger routing table. And soon the V6 will take off, right? We'll see it at the panel tomorrow, how far we are to the full V6 and away from when the V4 table will start to shrink. You know, I'm waiting for the day, you know, but I'm not holding my breath.
If nobody wants to go, then yeah, I think it's more like what business model are you operating with. So there are, even like Estonian market, there are multiple big operators, and we have different business models. So we at Telia, we have this, say, the absolute quality, and this is what we believe in. We have higher prices than some of our competitors, so we have to give something in return, and the quality and how we operate, resiliency, whatever comes with that. So in that sense, we don't. Well, I don't want to say that we don't really have a problem. I mean, of course, everybody loves bigger budget, that's for sure. But we can afford building good quality networks, and adding redundancy, of course, is part of that, and that helps with the resiliency. But I can't say that like every access node we connect with two different physical paths. No, that's not the case, and that's unimaginable because that would be heavily expensive. So that's not happening. Some other competitors, maybe they have less redundancy and lower prices, so you can kind of pick and choose what service do you want to buy. But so in that sense, if you are able to sell this as a service, to market this as a service, then you're golden in that sense. That you possibly have the budget for that. But if you are absolutely the lowest cost provider in very competitive market, then it's super hard.
There was a joke that I think the American astronaut said. He said, I was going to space in the rocket, and I was thinking that every piece of this rocket was provided by a supplier who was the lowest bidder at the government auction.
Yeah,
you know, not optimistic, right? You know.
Well, I mean, to reiterate back to your question there, how do you make this happen? Well, I think the the truth is that every good engineer wants to build the most robust and resilient network possible, right? At least we can hope so. There are probably some other engineering ideas, but that's the sort of the general idea of being an engineer. You fix stuff. And then any good financial officer has, for his or her work description, is to keep costs down as much as possible. So of course there's going to be a collision of interest there. So I would say to get this balanced, you need to assess the cost of not being available. So SLAs, loss of trust in your brand, etc., etc. You have to put that into numbers, and then you will have a lot easier to get a case saying, yes, we need to build this redundant because otherwise we will have to pay a bunch of money to a company because we had good SLAs to win the contract. So where do we want to spend the money to keep the trust from our, the market, or do we want to lose the trust and then have to pay money to people who we actually had given an SLA to? So I think that the whole idea of how you build your business cases have to change a bit in order to be able to build resilient and robust.
And I think it's a good point. That's why I like that in my company the CFO and CEO are not the same person. But it can be the same person in a small business.
But it doesn't mean that CFO has to be against your plan. I mean, for us, of course, CFO has their best interests, but CFO is not coming to me with a message saying that it has to be the lowest cost. Because even she is on board saying that, I mean, we need to provide quality of service. So give me good quality service at the lowest cost. That's the key. But for the cost part especially, the development we've seen, it's not happened yet, but we also know that this is happening on the European Union level as well, is that internet, as you said, is a utility. And actually, this is not good for resiliency because some people are saying that why should we have 3 different fiber cables? So we only have one power cable, we have only one water pipe, we should have only one fiber cable. And then, of course, sell this on the open market to all of the, let's say, the IP network or service providers that actually would put only the layer 3 on top of there. So that doesn't help with the resiliency at all. So that's kind of totally opposite decision, and this is pushed by many of the operators. I'm not saying in the Estonian market, but on the EU level, because they don't have money to invest into the infrastructure, but they want to still sell the service and do these kinds of things. So why not governments force that? Only have internet, fiber, whatever as an utility, one single path, especially in access, and everybody could use that. So that's also totally like anti-development to the resiliency part.
Actually, yes, I don't think any house here has 2 water providers that work in parallel, or 2 the natural gas providers, well, I don't have it, or 2 electricity providers. Although Lithuania had introduced competition, you can sign different contracts, which would be just spot price or long-term price, but you want to say something, right?
Yeah, so
internet you can buy many.
Yeah,
mobile home you can buy 2 fiber providers, or mobile and
yeah, it's
home.
actually when you started talking about 2 gas providers, I started thinking this sounds really dangerous. Anyway, so I remember talking to a CFO once about adding resiliency, and he complained to me that why is this backup connection more expensive than our primary connection? And I had to explain to him, if it was cheaper than our primary connection, it would have been the primary connection, because we would have chosen that in the tender as the primary connection.
Oh, right.
And
Okay.
having to explain that to a CFO is a bit awkward. These days, networks in our countries tend to be pretty stable. Well, if there's a war, or in Finland and Sweden, we've had these huge snowstorms that have wreaked a lot of havoc and stuff like that. But mostly it's day-to-day operations is stable. But sometimes when there are regions or situations when the network becomes unstable, it is a lot easier to explain to the CFO that if we build a little bit of redundancy here, our help desk will have 99% fewer calls per day. And that usually rings a bell that it sounds like a good idea.
Right, because you just save in different places. I mean, you save on equipment, but you lose on people. There was also another question that I was thinking of. I kind of skipped it, but I got it back, and I get the audience question then. Which metrics you use, which automation we can use? Like, for example, how do you measure the quality of the network? How do you take decisions? Do you have to make the decisions? Do you have a NOC, or do you have the AI doing it for you? What's your advice? Because that's people versus technology, right? You pay somebody to build you network observability, network monitoring, and then the final step is a active network policy, right? But then you see that your routers has been changed by the magic which you don't like, and then you have another problem. So automated decisions, or just automating information flows, at least for your network, maybe, so you don't have to find out about the problem when the problem happened.
Yeah, of course we have AI in the cloud, and this will solve all the problems for us. But no, I'm joking. Sadly or happily, we don't have that. But my message always has been to all the people that build simple networks. So don't overcomplicate this, because this also helps for the quality and resiliency. This helps for the restoration speed and also the number of problems, software bugs, whatever you will hit. So this is kind of the number one key metric, is that you have normal eyeball network here in, let's say, Baltics, and it's basically true for all the Europe, I would say. If you're an international provider, many markets and so on, then it's different, especially if there are sub-ocean optical fibers involved and stuff like that. But when somebody comes to me saying that, oh, we need this new fancy traffic engineering, PCE, external controllers, whatnot, yeah, very cool, but why? Where is the business case? So I've been explaining to some of my colleagues, for example, that why we need traffic engineering, because we either have one path or we have two paths for redundancy, and they are equally as good and equally as performant. So what's the point of traffic engineering? We don't have, it's 350 kilometers from border to border. We don't have this very high-priced, low-latency link between Europe and Asia. So that's not the market we are in. So for them, it's a problem. For us, it's not. So make it as simple as possible.
Yeah, we have, former LinkedIn network engineer who used to work in Dublin. I don't know if she's in the room. But I bet there are people who do complicated stuff, and I'm lucky to not deal with that. Or maybe I'm not lucky. Maybe I just don't know how fun it can be.
Do complicated stuff if you absolutely require it. So if you already find that, okay, that is the only way out, then you go and do the complicated stuff. But other than that, you need to have your performance data, monitoring, your probing. So don't, have your help desk as a single source of problems. You should probably know before the customer calls you. And sometimes it is actually easier to pay out the SLA fines than to make it maybe absolutely super 100% available. So that's also a way you can take with your business. But your typical normal stuff, but if you asked about the performance data, then yeah, the SNMP is still a thing. So it's not like gRPC everywhere. No, it's not. It's still SNMP if you go down there.
Yeah, we use SNMP agents, some things very stable, and I have seen some observability tools that people use in modern cloud solutions consumer resources that actually things they monitor. You know, say with DNS I have the statistics, but I don't have to react because I have over-provisioning. You know, sometimes you don't have to react to things. It's best to build a network which doesn't even need reaction, which has a little spare capacity, you know. Well, some protocols are better for that, some not, and, you know, say email with buffer.
Yeah, but this simplicity goes for all the supporting systems or your NMS stuff and as well. It's like if you have like your metrics, like very good example that I could actually go and build a hugely super highly available Prometheus long-term storage cluster, multi-site, whatever, to have all the network metrics in there. Or I can have one single Prometheus server. Okay, redundancy is done with the virtualization layer, yada, yada, yada. And the second option, almost no maintenance, very small resource usage, and it gives you 99.999% of the same thing, that you have your metrics in an easily consumable way in a database. So you can build whatever analytics, automation, whatever on top of that. You don't have to go and dig to the RRD files like you had to do like 20 years ago. So you can have like 99% of the functionality very simply, and then you can add this 0.001% and build a hugely complicated system that probably is unavailable when you most need it.
Yeah, and that big Prometheus cluster, like I said, can be its own thing, and then you need to monitoring for that.
Exactly.
Its database can also, and you know, oh, if you move that to the cloud, there could be the unexpected conversation with the CFO, you know, as well, about the expanded traffic bill. Okay, we have about 10 minutes left exactly, and we have some audience. I thought maybe, oh yeah, please say.
I'd like to
Alexei.
introduce one topic that we haven't talked about yet. And
Sure.
it's this cooperation between operators and within industries and between industries.
Yeah, cross cooperation. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, sure.
So when we are thinking about national resiliency or regional resiliency for the whole Baltics, I think one thing that is important is that all the operators, for example, have an information sharing group where they discuss current phenomena that they are observing in their network, and if they find ways to mitigate or fix or whatever, they share it so that the other operators can also quickly do the same, so that everyone doesn't have to reinvent wheels themselves, and that everyone becomes aware of new threats and whatever as soon as possible. So this is one aspect of the information sharing group, but the other thing is that there are also other pieces of critical infrastructure, not just the internet or telco world. There's like the power grid, financial systems, logistics, and so on and so on. And each of those should also have their own information sharing groups, and these different information sharing groups in different fields should also cooperate. An example of what has been done in Finland in cooperation between different industries is that I already mentioned that we had this huge snowstorm once that knocked out power systems in a lot of rural areas. There were tens of thousands of people without power for days, and it was the middle of winter. And getting that fixed was difficult because the power companies needed to communicate with their field personnel. But because the power outage had already been so long, the mobile networks in the area didn't work anymore because they have run out of battery, and they were smaller nodes, so they didn't have a generator. So after that, learning from that, the power companies and the telcos now have a system where they practice these things together every now and then, and they also coordinate so that, for example, one of the biggest things is that you can call 911 or 112 as it is in Europe. And if the mobile networks are all down, then you can't call 112. But if even one of the mobile networks is up, then you don't need a SIM to call. You can call 112 using another operators.
Oh yeah, by the way, Ukraine introduced national roaming in the first, I think, months of war and of the new war, as they call it, because the war was originally in 2014. So all of the Ukrainian, am I right, Elena? Because I'm not in Ukraine
Yes,
right
I will
now. All of the Ukrainian operators roam
presentation
within
about
each
it.
other's network. All three of them, right, mutually?
Yeah. I will tell you not only about this new technology which we provide in Ukraine in my next presentation. It is not only one decision that we already provided in Ukraine. It is a national roaming and few new technologies.
Yeah, and also I think the Ukrainian operators are now being mandated to provide significant, and not just mobile, I think internet operators to significant amount of time which they should operate regardless of the power situation. Assume their equipment is not damaged by any rockets, drones, or any other man-made disasters. Although it's hard for me to call the Russian army people humans, personal opinion. Okay, so I think we still need to get a question from the audience. It was a nice conversation with all of you. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks to our organizers. Wait, I can see our moderator. Yes, I can see you. Thank you. Do you mind asking the audience? And maybe because I'm a bit blinded by this light, I see the people here, but I have to look you.
Of course. Can you raise your hand if you have any questions or maybe some ideas, insights? No questions?
Okay, I see nobody left during our presentation. That's good. Either you're just asleep or you're really listening. Okay, well, we'll still have to do the closing remarks.
Actually, sorry, I can see one hand.
Oh, great. Go ahead, please. And introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Oh, we have a microphone here, so it's coming.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, my name is Dmytro, developer of Traffic Dictator. I have a question about backdoors in network equipment. Without naming specific companies, but there are reasonable suspicions that certain telecommunication equipment might have backdoors, which can be either accessed by some unfriendly governments or by just some different hackers who were not intended to use it, but they can use it as security vulnerability. So, did you consider this problem?
You mean Huawei, right?
Maybe, yeah.
Just for example. Or maybe another.
Huawei, ZTE, other companies. Yeah. There were some in Cisco, backdoors found in Cisco equipment, so it can be actually many different vendors.
Yeah, there have been backdoors in many things.
I have a very strong view on this.
Well, one thing that I think is a good rule of thumb is because many of these backdoors still require the attacker to attack through the management port. One good rule of thumb is that the management ports are in a network that is not connected to the internet. So that helps with a lot of that threat, not everything, but a lot of it. It's still depressing to sometimes read stories where networks have been brought down because their management interfaces have been on the internet one way or another, even in 2025.
I'm not actually too worried about Huawei specifically, because I'm worried about all the vendors and have been worried for the last 20 years. Seriously, like isolate your shit from the internet. That's the first rule of thumb. Don't trust any of the vendors. Either they are malicious or not. I mean, doesn't matter. If it's a third-party attacker, doesn't matter. I mean, isolate your stuff, isolate your control plane, very close networks. Then make sure that the vendors, so the GGPP stuff is especially a good example here. Make sure the vendors could not connect to your network on their own. Like, sure, sometimes you need to allow them to do some debugging or whatever, very controlled fashion. Through the jump hosts, record all the screens, whatever, make sure that they know that they have been followed, and they only can allow this access when you say that, okay, now it's open, now you close it, or you do it with the screen sharing with your computer, whatever. So it cannot be like the operator vendor connecting to a network whenever he wishes. I mean, don't make it happen. Isolate it as much as possible, and then if possible have like multiple lines of defense, like how do you do your IP MPLS network? Do you like put internet into the VRF or into the global table, for example? Like if you forget the loopback ACLs on the device, then do you have another set of protections like ACL, something like that, that would defend you even if you forget this configuration on one single router for some reason? So that is the kind of the key, and don't trust any of the vendors. So the Huawei is not only the bad or good example here.
I agree. I don't think there is any bad vendor we should be afraid of. And by the way, as a break into the Kyivstar mobile operator Ukraine showed, it was two things. First of all, the big operator had big problem, like they went down completely. And within the next, I think 72 hours, they managed to restore first mobile service, then the plain old calls. And the latest was the SMS message, which is really fun. I'm not a Kyivstar user, but I read. I think it took them about a week to restore basic functionality, the portal, the customer service lines, and they were very open about the communication. But just to prove, it was the biggest, still probably is the biggest mobile provider in Ukraine. There's what, 20 million customers probably at least. They were vulnerable. I don't think they had bad practices. Of course, we can blame that on we know who, but well, I know that US had grid attacks and the power grid attacks or water grid attacks. We can go on. The world is not safe anymore, wasn't ever safe. And when utilities are connecting to the internet becomes a utility. We have exactly, -4 seconds. We have exactly nothing. I'm going to thank our moderator and our sound crew and my participants and you, the audience. And please have a good coffee break and come back to this room or go to the other room. Or maybe talk to each other, but not at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you.